Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the week ending. My name is Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program today. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has again accused the British Prime Minister David Cameron of forcing unpopular policies on professionals in education and health sectors. Mr. Corbyn advised the Prime Minister to rethink his school academies program and junior doctors' contracts. During the Prime Minister's question time, the Prime Minister David Cameron said British economy is stronger and every program is geared towards building a fairer society.
Could he tell us whether he will bring forward legislation to force, against the wishes of good and outstanding schools, to become academies in the upcoming Queen's speech? Yes or no?
Obviously, I can't really preempt what's in the Queen's speech, but on this one example, I can help him out. We're going to have academies for all, and it'll be in the Queen's speech.
Jeremy Corbyn. Well, Mr. Speaker, we look forward to that, but there is still time for the U-turn, which I'm sure is at the back of the Prime Minister's mind. It's been reported that the government is considering allowing good local authorities to form multi-academy trusts. Ironically, this would actually give local authorities more responsibility for running schools than they have now, although the Prime Minister has previously suggested that local authorities are holding schools back. So why is this costly reorganisation of schools necessary for schools that are already good or outstanding? Why is it forcing it on them?
As I said last week, and it's good, I like repeats on television, I'm very happy to have them in the House as well. As I said last week, outstanding schools have nothing to fear from becoming academies, and indeed have a lot to gain. And just because a school is outstanding or good doesn't mean it can't have further improvement. Not least what we want to see is outstanding schools helping other schools in their area, often by being part of an academy trust. Now, he raises the issue about local authorities, but if you... Two questions so far, two very clear answers. Third question, third clear answer coming, so simmer down. Perhaps if you could deal with the anti-Semites in your own party, we'd all be prepared to listen to you a bit more. Maybe we'll come on to that. Of course, there are lots of ways that schools can become academies. They can convert and become academies. They can be sponsored by an outside organisation. They can work with other schools in the area. They can look at working with the local authority. Those schools that want to go on using local authority services are free to do so. I'm very clear. Academies are great. Academies for all is a good policy. What we're now seeing from Labour, I sense, is they're now moving in favour of academy schools. Perhaps when he gets his feet, he could say, does he favour academies or not?
Jeremy Corbyn. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will be aware that sometimes repeats on television get more viewers than the first time round. The Chief Executive of the largest academy chain in London, the Harris Academy, has warned that a far more fundamental thing that the Prime Minister should be worrying about, whether schools should become academies or not, is actually teacher shortages. The academies, Mr. Speaker, don't want this. Parents don't want it. Teachers don't want it. Governors don't want it. Conservative councils and MPs don't want it. Who actually does want this top-down reorganisation he's imposing on our education system?
Okay. Question 4, answer 4, here it comes. He says, who wants this? Well, let's start with Michael Wilshaw, the Chief Inspector of Schools. I don't know, I think someone quite worthwhile listening to. Academisation can lead to rapid improvements, and I firmly believe it's right to give more autonomy to the front line. OECD, shall we try? They've been in the news today. We won't get too controversial. The OECD... I view the trend towards academies as a very promising development in the UK, which used to have a rather prescriptive education system, so they support it. What about endless academy trusts who support it? Now, he asked another question, very keen for full answers. If you shout, you won't hear the answer. asked about teacher shortages. The fact is, there are more school places and more teachers under this government than there were under Labour. Why? Because we've got a successful economy and we're putting it into our schools and our children's future.
Mr. Speaker, there are, of course, still record numbers of children in oversized classes and in supersized classes, and that is getting worse. And if he is looking for support for his academisation proposal, he might care to phone up his friends, the leaders of Hampshire, West Sussex and his own Oxfordshire County Council, who are deeply concerned and opposed by it. He might care to listen to Councillor Carter, the Conservative chair of the County Council's network, who says the change will lead to a poorer education system. So why is he pushing it through with so much opposition, so much concern and such a waste of money when we should be investing in teachers and schools, not top-down reorganisation?
Well, I'm glad he's quoting Conservative council leaders, and because they keep the council tax down and provide good services, I hope we'll see more of them in 10 days' time. Now, on teacher supply, just to be clear, 13,000 more teachers than 2010, to give a wholly accurate answer to his fourth question. Again he asked about who else would support academies. Let me quote Helena Mills of the Burnt Mill Academy Trust, because she said this: "I used to be very sceptical and resistant to academy status. But during the process of developing the academy, I've been increasingly convinced this is the way forward." That is what more and more people are saying. That is why 1.3 million more children in good and outstanding schools. That is why almost 9 out of 10 converter academies are good or outstanding schools. We're very clear on this side of the House. We back aspiration, we back opportunity, we back investment in our schools. We want every child to get the best. It's Labour that want to hold back opportunity and have one size fits all.
Mr. Speaker, there seems to be a pattern developing here. The pattern is quite simply this. He has a health secretary that's imposing a contract on junior doctors against the wishes of patients and the public and the rest of the medical profession. Yes. He has an education secretary imposing yet another Tory top-down reorganisation that nobody wants. When will his government show some respect and listen to public, parents and patients, and indeed professionals who've given their lives to public service in education and health, and change his ways, listen to them and trust other people to run services rather than imposing things from above?
I tell him the pattern that is developing. We can see 1.9 million more people being treated in our health service. We can see 1.3 million more children in good or outstanding schools. That's the pattern that's developing. A strong economy, investing into our public services.
US President Barack Obama has described Britain as a key partner of the United States in a world growing with uncertainties. The president was speaking at a press conference in London where he said that Britain has been America's most reliable partner and the relationship could only be better with Britain in the EU.
Around the world, our joint efforts, as David mentioned, have stopped the outbreak of Ebola, helped Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, forged a climate agreement in Paris that hopefully will help to protect our planet for future generations. And today, on Earth Day, our governments, along with about 170 others, are in New York to sign that agreement. And the U.S. is committed to formally joining it this year, which should help it take effect years earlier than anybody expected. We also discussed the full array of challenges to our shared security. We remain resolute in our efforts to prevent terrorist attacks against our people and to continue the progress that we've made in rolling back and ultimately defeating ISIL. Our forces, as David mentioned, are systematically degrading ISIL's finances and safe havens and removing its top leaders from the battlefield. And we've got to keep working to improve security and information sharing across Europe and to stem the flow of foreign fighters into and out of Syria. We discussed our efforts to resolve political conflicts in the Middle East, from Yemen to Syria to Libya, in order to increase the prospects for stability. In Libya, going forward, we have an opportunity to support a new government and help Libyans root out extremist elements. In Syria, as challenging as it is, we still need to see more progress towards an enduring ceasefire, and we continue to push for greater humanitarian access to the people who need it most. We have to continue to invest in NATO so that we can meet our overseas commitments from Afghanistan to the Aegean. We have to resolve the conflict in the Ukraine and reassure allies who are rightly concerned about Russian aggression. All NATO allies should aim for the NATO target of spending 2% of their GDP on defense, something that David has made sure happens here in the UK to meet that standard. We discussed new actions we can take to address the refugee crisis, including with our NATO allies. And because a strong defense relies on more than just military spending, but on helping to unleash the potential of others to live freer and more prosperous lives, I want to thank the people of the United Kingdom for their extraordinary generosity as one of the world's foremost donors of humanitarian aid. We talked about promoting jobs and stronger growth through increased transatlantic trade and investment so that our young people can achieve greater opportunity and prosperity. And yes, the Prime Minister and I discussed the upcoming referendum here on whether or not the UK should remain part of the European Union. Let me be clear. Ultimately, this is something that the British voters have to decide for themselves. But as part of our special relationship, part of being friends is to be honest and to let you know what I think. And speaking honestly, the outcome of that decision is a matter of deep interest to the United States because it affects our prospects as well. The United States wants a strong United Kingdom as a partner. And the United Kingdom is at its best when it's helping to lead a strong Europe. It leverages UK power to be part of the European Union. As I wrote in the op-ed here today, I don't believe the EU moderates British influence in the world, it magnifies it. The EU has helped to spread British values and practices across the continent. The single market brings extraordinary economic benefits to the United Kingdom. And that ends up being good for America because we're more prosperous when one of our best friends and closest allies has a strong, stable, growing economy. Americans want Britain's influence to grow, including within Europe. The fact is, in today's world, no nation is immune to the challenges that David and I just discussed. And in today's world, solving them requires collective action. All of us cherish our sovereignty. My country is pretty vocal about that. But the U.S. also recognizes that we strengthen our security through our membership in NATO. We strengthen our prosperity through organizations like the G7 and the G20. And I believe the UK strengthens both our collective security and prosperity through the EU. In the 21st century, the nations that make their presence felt on the world stage aren't the nations that go it alone, but the nations that team up to aggregate their power and multiply their influence. And precisely because Britain's values and institutions are so strong and so sound, we want to make sure that that influence is heard, that it's felt, that it influences how other countries think about critical issues. We have confidence that when the UK is involved in a problem, that they're going to help solve it in the right way. That's why the United States cares about this. You know, for centuries, Europe was marked by war and by violence. The architecture that our two countries helped build with the EU has provided the foundation for decades of relative peace and prosperity on that continent. What a remarkable legacy. A legacy born in part out of what took place in this building. Before we walked out, I happened to see Enigma on display. And that was a reminder of the incredible innovation and collaboration of the Allies in World War II, and the fact that neither of us could have won that alone. And in the same way, after World War II, we built out the international institutions that, yes, occasionally constrained us. But we willingly allowed those constraints because we understood that by doing so, we were able to institutionalize and internationalize the basic values of rule of law and freedom and democracy that would benefit our citizens as well as people around the world.
While the Prime Minister has said the referendum in June will not only affect Britain, but also its partners in the EU, America, Australia, and the rest of the world.
This is a referendum, and as Barack has explained, it's a referendum that affects, of course, the people of the United Kingdom very deeply, but it also does affect others in the European Union. It affects partners like America or Canada or Australia and New Zealand. And, you know, as I look around the world, it is hard to find, so far I haven't found one, a country that wishes Britain well, that thinks we ought to leave the European Union. And I think that's, again, it's our choice. We'll make the decision. We'll listen to all the arguments. People want the facts, they want the arguments, they want to know the consequences. And I'll try and lay those out, Prime Minister, as clearly as I can. But listening to our friends, listening to countries that wish us well, is part of the process and is a good thing to do. As for the American elections, I've made some comments in recent weeks and months. I don't think now is the moment to add to them or subtract from them. But I think just as a Prime Minister who's been through 2 general elections leading my party, you always look on at the US elections in awe of the scale of the process and the length of the process, and I marvel at anyone who's left standing at the end of it.
Black Africans and Caribbeans are at a greater risk of developing a heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, and high blood pressure due to a busy lifestyle, smoking, drinking, and lack of exercise. The president of the Royal College of Nursing, Cecilia Annim, stated this in an interview with Ben TV's Osarime Okpalua.
I'm here live with the president of the Royal College of Nursing, Mrs. Cecilia Annim. Thank you very much. Can you tell us about the One You campaign?
The One You campaign is a campaign launched by the Public Health England to target people's way of life and to encourage all of us to lead a healthier life. The reason being is that there are a lot of diseases that affect people in middle age from 40 to 60 years, and especially among Black, African, Caribbean people. So it is a program that we should all take seriously and try and encourage others. Living healthy is of benefit to you, to your family, and also to the country.
Who is this campaign targeted at and why?
As I've already said, this campaign is targeted for Black, African, Caribbean people, and especially men, because there are prevalence of high blood pressure. 1 in 4 Black men may get prostate cancer. There is heart diseases and type 2 diabetes, which is 85% among Black African Caribbean people. And it is very important to do things that will reduce these risks. That is, reducing smoking, reducing alcohol intake, salt intake, exercise regularly, and eat a healthy diet. So if you live healthy between 40 and 60, you are likely to have a healthy 70. You know, people in their 40 to 60s are actually looking after other people more than themselves, because they've got grandchildren, they've got elderly parents, and they've got other responsibilities. So we tend to not to look after ourselves. So I'm urging you all to look after yourself. Be the number one so that you can look after the others.
What kind of would you encourage a busy professional to take towards living a healthier life?
Busy professionals should take time to look after themselves in order to live and enjoy the work they do. First and foremost, anything to reduce your stress level, because if you don't, no one else will do. No one is indispensable. When you are working very busy, take time in the day to exercise. Make sure you eat regular meals at regular intervals. If you smoke, reduce smoking. There are measures there to help you reduce your smoking, reduce your alcohol intake, and reduce your stress, which regular exercises will help.
Why did you decide to partake in this campaign?
I decided because I've been in healthcare for over almost 40 years. So I wanted to make sure that people live healthy. We can spread the message. And if people are living healthy in our communities, it will also reduce the health budget. It would cost a lot to put somebody in hospital, treat somebody with complex or long-term medical conditions, the effect on employment, the effect on their family. If they are not going to work and on sick benefit, it will affect the family budget. So we all need to live very healthy.
What would you like our viewers to do?
I want you to do the 1U quiz. It is very important to make sure that you are doing the right thing. And the only way to find that out is to do the quiz. If you look at the bottom of your screen, the link to the quiz is there. Please do it. And if you find that there are any deficits in your life plan, please try and address it. It is very important. And encourage your friends and relatives also to do the same.
Thank you very much for this interview.
I am very happy to help, and anytime you need our help, please do. Care is what we do.
And this is all we have for you this week on News Roundup. Thank you for being part of the program. I'm Tunde Alabi. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye. Of our continued efforts to reach the African and other ethnic communities in the United Kingdom with greater impacts and create a platform to hear your silent and unheard views in this hugely growing community in the United Kingdom, our channel Ben TV presents to you another live current affairs television program. Our focus on the program is to review and discuss issues around the diaspora community in the UK. The program offers you that unrestricted voice on issues affecting you in the UK. Join us live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Another business segment of Dialogue in Diaspora, 2 to 3 p.m. every Monday. But guess what? You know you can be part of the program. Just send us an email at bentelevisionuk@gmail.com. Dialogue in Diaspora, your voice, your opinion on our TV.